Our Value of Advice ebook and podcast series is proudly sponsored by MediHelp.
Hi, this is Tony at Cover, and I'm speaking to Warren Ingram from Galileo Capital. And this is another interview in the series of ours, talking to all the past financial planners of the year. Warren, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for talking to me.
Thanks, Tony. It's a real pleasure to chat to you.
Brilliant. Warren, our idea is to talk a little bit around your journey, the profession, ideas that you have around where we are at the moment, some words of wisdom for new guys, old guys who are bored with what they're doing. And that's what we're trying to do with all of these conversations. So maybe to start off with, you also have an interesting journey to becoming an independent Galileo Capital. So if you can tell us in brief your journey to where you are now, and where did that win of Financial Planner of the Year fit in for you?
This is the only career I've ever had. I started in the industry in 1996. It was 2 days after I finished university and 2 days before I turned 21. And in those days, there was no requirement to educate yourself. You started in the industry. I joined a group, and they were mostly accountants and tax experts. They had a very small investment business, and they had no financial planning. So what they did was they sent me off to a big insurance company, and I had a week of training, and they gave me a book that kind of had a whole lot of calculations and formulas and things. And the trainer of that course for the week said, "Congratulations, you're now a financial planner. Off you go." And I went back to this business, and I was paid the princely sum of 2,000 Rand a month was my salary. And so it started, and I worked for that company for quite a few years. And then along the way, found myself relocating from Cape Town to Joburg, and then ended up at a very big corporate, at the time, the world's second biggest bank. And then I realized the grind of the big machine, where you're in an environment where best advice and your own thoughts about how financial planning should be, and the will of the machine and the will of the corporate are not the same. And for me, that was enormously frustrating. And it got to a point where the division I was in got bought by a South African bank, and there was no way I was working for that bank. So I quit. It wasn't very clever, Tony, because I did no planning around that. I just quit. And my now business partner, Theo Forster, and we started Galileo Capital after about 2 months, 96 coffees in different coffee shops. We shook hands and we started a business. And the idea was to break the whole cycle. And this is 2005, to break that whole cycle of product selling. People in those days, it sounds crazy now, but in those days, investments largely paid for by clients with upfront fees, lots of upfront commissions, front-end loading, lots of hidden stuff around how fees were charged. And we just thought all of that was wrong. And for us, the idea of grounding clients in framing them correctly from a behavioral point of view was important. So Theo was the chairman of the Institute of Behavioral Finance at the time. And so we thought we needed to do this differently and break the whole cycle of being a seller and become an advisor, a true advisor. And for me, that was the key. Starting that, we only charged annual fees, no upfront fees, only took retired clients, which meant that 3 years into the life of our business, we were earning, I think it was in its entirety, about 300,000 Rand a year, which was required to pay 2 salaries, rent, all of those things, which just wasn't enough. I sold my house, had to cash in my provident fund. And then right in the end of the third year, I even borrowed money from my wife, who also had started her own business, and promised her that one day I'd find a way to pay her back. And fortunately, at that point, a very good friend of mine decided to immigrate to Australia. He had a financial planning business. And he said to me that he liked the ethics of what we were doing, the way we were advising clients. And the fact that I had no money to pay him for his business was okay, because he gave me 3 years to pay him for the company, provided we looked after the clients. And that was the thing he knew we would do. And that was a lifesaver. Without that, we were done. And I had no more financial resources, nothing, no other tricks to pull out of the rabbits to pull out of a hat. And when people today tell me that it's hard to start a financial planning business and do it correctly and you've got to make money and all of those things. I hear them, I believe them, and I agree with them. But gee, doing the right thing and sticking to the ethics of what you do has to be the answer. And mis-selling to pay the bills might get you through a month or three, but we're going to be 20 years old next year. And I 100% believe that the ethics was the most important thing. The way of doing this right was the reason that we survived, and now while we thrive. And I think coming to Financial Planner of the Year, I looked at the industry and decided I can't just be someone that had a week's long education at a women insurance company and think that was enough. I'm a university graduate. And so there, actually going and writing my exams, actually becoming a professional financial planner for me was a non-negotiable. I needed to do it. I felt inadequate always, that I didn't know enough and didn't have the full grounding of what it means to be a financial planner. And so that was key. And from that point in our business today, we don't allow someone to call themselves a Galileo financial planner unless they are a certified financial planner. That's a non-negotiable. You can't do anything in our business as an advisor without it. And I think we built, I thought, a very nice business over the first 5 years of our company's life. But around about 20, and I think I maybe got caught up in the World Cup, fever of South Africa hosting a World Cup and thinking we were amazing. And I think I do think our country's amazing. But I wanted to measure what we were doing as a financial planning business against a reputable benchmark. And the only one I could find was Financial Planner of the Year. And for me, it was to understand the financial planning process objectively. When you have to open your doors and open your files in those days to outsiders from the Financial Planning Institute and show them what you do and show them the process. It's quite intimidating, I think, but I thought it was a worthy thing to measure us. And I was lucky, I think, that the time was right. The way we did things was obviously good for the FPI as well. And so I managed to win it in our first year, which I don't think happens that often. And for me, that was real validation for our financial planning process. We were still a small, plucky business then, and we were, very overshadowed by the big corporates. And there was one corporate in particular that seemed to had found a formula for teaching their financial planners to win the Planner of the Year competition. And that was really bothering me. It felt like a closed shop. And being the outsider and coming in and saying, don't find excuses, just make it work and make it happen. And I think that for me was life-changing, to be very honest. Becoming Financial Planner of the Year was a big confidence boost personally, as a person. And then for our company, that my business partner and my colleagues at the time all felt we could box in a box above our weight. We could stack up against anybody and didn't have to apologize for being who we were and what we are, and our beliefs were validated. So when someone says to me today, I'm not sure I'm going to enter Financial Planner of the Year because I'm a woman or I'm a guy or I'm this or I'm that. And I always think to myself, all of those are excuses. You enter Financial Planner of the Year because you believe in your business, your process, and you want to measure yourself to see if you are worthy of calling yourself a great financial planner. And I think that's the reason you enter. And for our business, frankly, it was transformative. It put us on the map as a small company. In those days, we got invited to a lot of talks, got invited to be in the media, and that was the launch of my kind of career on 702 and Cape Talk, being able to get exposure there. I could only have got that through the Financial Planning Institute. So I think, long story to a short question, but that's Financial Planner of the Year for me is, I took that year of being the financial planner incredibly seriously. Like I felt we needed to have a voice out there, and I'd had some nice kind of exposure to writing and speaking in the media before then, but I used every second of that I possibly could, not to talk about myself, not to talk about my business, but to talk about our profession and to try and get people to understand, especially people in the financial planning industry who weren't CFPs and who thought that it meant nothing, and to get them to understand that you can't call yourself a financial planning professional if you're not a CFP. I still believe that then, and I believe it today. And that grounding and the continuous education does set you apart and does make you stand to a high ethical standard as well. And circling back, the FPI kind of spoke about ethics a long time ago. And I believe our business stands today because of our ethics, because we resonate there.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So if you look at this journey, and do you have any stories or a story of that sort of puts for you into perspective why you do what you're doing?
I'll tell you about let me quote Reg Thompson, who is one of my industry mentors, and he's 71 now, and he can't use all the colorful language that he used to describe our profession, but editing it, he says it's the best profession in the world, and that's true. I believe that's true because if you do it correctly, you change people's lives and you change them for the better. And I think that there are very few professions where you can make people's lives better and do that over a decade or two or three with someone where you walk a journey. And I think it's phenomenally rewarding if you've got the right outlook. For me, the thing that I've always found very difficult was how do you help people that have come from nothing and have managed to build up to the point of retirement where they've got enough money and they reach this day where it should be in some ways the pinnacle of your financial life. You've achieved financial freedom. You can stop work and then live a life on different terms, live the life you want with meaning and purpose. And to me, it should be such a joyous time. And for a lot of people, they get to retirement and they're terrified. And even if they've got enough money, showing them a spreadsheet or a formula or a projection doesn't help. There's an emotional, psychological barrier to what's stopping them from living the life they're supposed to. And so for me, that's always been a very difficult thing. And I think that I met a husband and wife who'd sold a very nice big hardware store business in Joburg, and they were basically just living at home, just not leaving the house, not spending any money because they were terrified, especially the wife was terrified of running out. And when I did the calculations for them, they could spend 3 or 4 times more than they were in a month. They could go and visit their children who all lived in the UK, but they just never left the house. And things were coming to a head because the husband had been diagnosed with a condition where he was going to lose his sight, and it was going to happen gradually, but over a 2-year period, he would become blind. And he's stuck in a house with his life partner, and he wants to make her comfortable and not scared. But he would love to see the world that he hasn't seen in the most literal way. He'd love to see the world, and he'd love to go and visit his children and meet his grandchildren that he'd never met. And they were in a prison of their own making. And tell me that financial planning doesn't matter. And I'd say to you that that's the example of getting to break through that concern and that anxiety and get them to actually realize that they can spend some more money. They can live a better life and get a more fulfilling purpose than just worrying all the time. And they couldn't have done that on their own. They were stuck in a vicious circle. And I think that's a calling. That's when financial planning is life-changing for people in the most literal sense.
Yeah, because it is one of those big stresses in life. I know many years ago when I was still in corporate advising advisors that we went to see a person, and this was in the late 90s, that was earning 300,000 Rand a month. And he wasn't making it every month. He was in financial trouble because of the way that he managed his money. And a couple of small things changed his life with regards to how he managed that money. So it's a calling, as you say, for youngsters and so on. So Warren, if you look at the environment today versus the time when you started off, and I know that old thing of looking back and thinking, oh, the good old days or the bad old days, or it's always everybody's got their challenges, and every time and period has got their challenges. What do you see as challenging for people coming into the industry today, and how should the industry be managing those challenges to ensure that we've got a good future for the profession?
So framing is important because if you ask me about a youngster coming into the industry today versus a youngster coming into the industry a decade ago or 2 decades ago, I think there are people coming into the industry today are coming into it at a better time than ever before. I think people that think that this is a difficult stage of the industry to be in are misguided, or they're looking at the wrong thing. It's never been more professional. It's never been more acceptable and more, you've never had more capability as a youngster to come in and actually learn how to be a professional financial planner, to actually do it in the right way, where there are more and more opportunities for people to come in and get paid a salary like they would if they were an articled clerk as an accountant or a lawyer, and learn actually how to do this correctly from older professionals who've actually had the journey of being a professional. We're at least, I'm probably underestimating, but we're at least one full generation of financial planners who have done this as a proper profession, have done it the right way. That's not to say every single person in the financial services industry is a professional, it's doing it the right way. But when I started in 96, there was nobody. Everybody sold product. And I'm not 50 yet, but I would guess I'm one of the youngest people to have been in the industry for nearly 30 years and to have watched it evolve without some of the baggage. I think it's been amazing. So I'm probably not going to answer your question around challenges because I think it's been amazing now, Tony. But what I will say is it's any industry is hard to break into. If you want to break into the best financial planning firms and to learn from the best, that's not easy. And by definition, it shouldn't be easy. Like just to me, the difficulty is finding the right employer where you come in and you learn correctly from the right people. And I think that there's some very good programs now. So for example, we've been using the CISA intern program for our business, which is phenomenal. Finding youngsters who are young and dynamic and ambitious, willing to work, and they get over a year, both from us as a practice, but also from the academy, enormous support. And they're going to be the next generation of really high quality professionals. And so I think, yes, youngsters coming in, or like anywhere in the world, find it hard to get that foot in the door. But beyond that, when people complain about regulation and it's how much regulation is arriving, it's arriving because people have acted badly. People have behaved badly for decades, and it's time that they're correctly regulated. And if regulation goes too far, sure, do your job correctly, be a professional, do the right things, and you don't have a regulatory problem. It's only when you don't do the job that it's difficult. Beyond that, I'm excited because I think technology is finally catching up with us as financial planners. It's going to get easier and easier to provide service and to talk to clients instead of just sending them statements and documents and thinking that we're a postbox. We're past that now. And the advent of behavioral coaching for me is, again, transforming the industry in the right way. I think it's phenomenally exciting to be now. I can't see these challenges that people complain about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think when an industry becomes professional as to where we are at, it's only those people who want to take shortcuts that will not benefit from that professionalization that we've got. Warren, maybe just a last one before we go, and this is maybe a little bit of a hospital pass, asking you, what do we do as a profession to get those people good financial advice who have very little income and who have uncertain income? Because South Africa is still a country with very high unemployment, and many people who one could say are unemployed, but they actually have on-off work, etc., and they rely on institutions, etc., for survival in terms of their financial management and that sort of thing, a Capitec bank account, an Old Mutual funeral policy, and those sort of things. How do we as a profession get to that? Because professional financial planning is expensive. Being a professional financial planner also comes with cost. How do we translate what we do down? Do you have any sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. In the early days when the problem was big and the questions that I was getting from people outside of our business were enormous, the volume was enormous. And that's when people say, why did you write a book called Become Your Own Financial Planner? That's why, because I was trying to get that information out in a more bigger way. So I haven't stopped thinking about it since, I don't know, probably 2013. And I think that the thing I'm landing on is we're doing this on a Teams call. And WhatsApp phone calls nowadays, with data being cheap, are a powerful thing. So finding as a business, so as a professional financial planning business, part of your responsibility, if you're a profession, is you should be doing some work pro bono. So you should be doing some of your time in a month or in a year should be allocated to helping people who can't afford to pay you the normal fees that you would charge. And I think that people view that as a downside, as a negative. It's either I'm not going to do it, or damn it, now I've got to do pro bono work. And my view is it's such a phenomenal opportunity especially for young professional financial planners who need experience and need exposure to come in. Yes, you've got to make sure that those young professionals are trained there. And my view is allocating a few hours a week of their time to do to provide advice in the cheapest way possible. In other words, to do it on a Teams call, on a Zoom call, on a WhatsApp call, and just make yourself available, even if it's for half an hour at a time, to help people. The questions that people have they're usually not complex. And they need a little bit of guidance from someone who's objective, someone who cares, and who says, I can spend this time with you and I can give you the next 2 or 3 steps that you need to take. And in a year's time, let's connect again and I'll help you again with the next 2 or 3 steps you need to take. That's not a massive commitment if you block in the time, but also set the boundaries about what you can do and what you can't do and what you're not going to do. And I think that doing that, senior financial planners in the early days, doing it with very junior financial planners together, you very quickly teach the juniors how to do things. And maybe for people who are slightly better off than unemployed, people who are maybe earning a little bit of money, but not a lot, why are we not charging more hourly fees to people in that position? They have no assets, but they've got an income stream. They've got a lifetime of earnings to come. Why not charge them a small fee for an hour of your time, where you're giving them the opportunity to get on that journey to financial freedom and build up a pathway? You don't have to change your whole business, just add something and then do some pro bono work. I think it's a phenomenal way to teach youngsters, and maybe for young financial planners who start charging an hourly fee, it's a way for them to become revenue producing without having to become commission earning salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. Great ideas. Thank you so much, Warren. It's really good to talk to you. As I said to some of the previous guys, I can talk about this with you for a very long time, but unfortunately, we have 30 minutes, which is almost up. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. Have a good Friday.
Enjoyed it yourself as well. And yeah, we'll speak again soon. Thank you, Warren.
Take care. Bye.